Hey you guys, welcome back. Welcome back. This is going to be part two. It's kind of going to be a continuation from the last video I posted entitled, I forget what the exact title was. I was discussing covert narcissism and getting a little bit more in depth. I usually give out a little bit more information each time I discuss it because it is such a complex topic, but it was on covert narcissism and referencing the Watts case, Chris and Shan'ann Watts. And we know what happened there in 2018. I'm not going to say too much. If you want to research it on your own, we might get into it a little bit here and there, but I have to be kind of careful what I say. I'm glad you're here. If you have never been here before, hit like, hit subscribe, stick around, give my content a chance. You might find something you like. And if you've been watching my stuff, welcome back. Thank you for your input and for continuing to watch my videos as I discuss really many different topics that I'm pretty passionate about and sharing information and knowledge on. But the first video, part one, was covert narcissism and kind of getting into the people who support Chris Watts. And in this video here, part two, I've got a couple of questions people ask very frequently that they just wonder or they've asked. And I've just thought of a third question. I was just here kind of jotting down my notes and getting prepared. The first question is, it was about Chris's supporters. Someone actually commented on that first video and said, what? What supporters? What supporters does Chris Watts have? I know, right? And that's exactly what I said back to them. I was like, I know, right? It's pretty shocking that Chris Watts would have any type of supporters or fans or anything like that. But, there is a psychological phenomenon that goes on with some people, especially women, when they have low self-esteem, other issues going on. And some of them might even be commitment phobic. And some of these types of women will often become obsessed or attracted to a man in prison. This is in the back of their mind. Sometimes they're not even aware of these things, that they may have issues, low self-esteem, or fear of commitment even. And so it's hard for them to actually commit to a man in real life that's going to be there all the time. I've had to learn a lot of these psychological issues over my lifetime because I grew up in trauma. I had a lot of fears, phobias, issues, both extremes, sometimes one side or the other, too codependent and clingy, or too commitment phobic and inconsistent, jumping relationships, not wanting relationships. You name it, I've kind of been through it and experienced it. So for the question of what Chris Watts supporters, that kind of is what I'm referring to when I put in the title for those who support Chris Watts. Not only women like that who are apparently fans of his, but there is a gang of people that have since day one, because of the lies and the smearing of the character of his victims, his wife Shan'ann and his two daughters, because of the lies and the way this case went in the beginning, trying to lie on his wife. Yes, there's a group of people that turned on Shan'ann and her family and that have ever since been bashing her, nitpicking her, microscoping her every life move, ridiculing her, and more or less supporting Chris. Thinking that, she drove him to this, just making awful, awful accusations, twisting everything around. And then there are some people who sit right in the middle. They're like, we don't support Chris. We think he's right where he belongs, but we also don't like the woman and she this and she that. And, I hate all that. Everybody's entitled to their blah, blah, blah. Yeah, everybody is. That's good, great, and fine. But I talk about what I have seen in the case, what I have seen from personal experience. And a lot of times it takes one to know one. So anyway, that is where all that got started, what Chris Watts supporters. But there are women out there who have all types of issues all up and down the scale. They may not want to commit to a man in real life. They may have issues like that. And they will become fascinated with somebody in prison who can't necessarily get to them and control them all the time. Or they may have other deeper issues. They start feeling a lot of empathy for this person and believing that they are innocent of their crimes, and, fall in love with even serial killers or murderers, or, and listen, I don't have any shame in talking about my life. I've had family in prison before. My father was in prison twice. The first time for involuntary manslaughter back in the 70s. He got in a bar fight, and it wasn't the punch that took the guy out. It was because the guy fell down the stairs and hit his head. And he died 28 days later. They put my father in prison. This was before I was born, 2 years, but I've heard the story over and over and over and over again from both my parents, family members. What a mess. But my father ended up only serving 4 months on a year down in a southern Arkansas prison for involuntary manslaughter, and he got out. It was an accident, really. And then he went back to prison in the 90s when I was a teenager on account of me. And those videos are on my channel here. I need to finish those up. But anyway, back to Chris Watts and that whole scenario. I'm just trying, this video is kind of going to be a question answer thing. I've got a couple more questions that people often ask that I'm going to answer, and that have to do with covert narcissism and Chris and Shan'ann Watts, and just kind of getting back into that, okay? But to finish up the whole what Chris supporters, who supports Chris Watts? What on earth are you talking about? What supporters? Again, yeah, there are women who, become absolutely fascinated with men in prison. And, that's why I brought up my father. And, I've had cousins, I've had friends. We live in the deep South, and unfortunately, depending on where you're from and what your opportunities are, yeah, back in my early years, I knew a lot of people that spent time in prison, were in and out of prison. My life has changed quite a bit since then, thank goodness. But, and I don't have anything against it. I don't have, if I was with somebody and they had to go serve time for some reason, pretty much I would support them. I mean, it just depends on what they did. I've had friends in situations like that I was very supportive of them in prison. But to just fall in love with a stranger in prison just because he's got a little bit of fame, and, I am definitely first going to, research the crime. I'm going to do a lot of research on this person, because you never know who the hell you're really getting involved with. And that just blows my mind, though. I don't think I could ever be able to do that. Not a man who did what Chris Watts did. There's no way. Okay? I know it takes all different types in this world, different strokes for different folks. There have been people that got married on death row, people that were never getting out of prison, and the woman is devoted to them, and they get little visits in there and stuff, and they live their whole life out like that because maybe that's just how their life is, and they don't want a man at home, or they don't want a woman at home. I'm sure the same goes for women in prison. There's some crazy shit that goes on in this world. Love is love, whatever. I don't see any problem with it if you are in love with somebody who is serving time or in a difficult situation. I'm thinking of Damien Eccles, who was from down here where I'm from, and he was from over in West Memphis, Arkansas, and that whole 18 years on death row, down in the prison, and being innocently, put through all of that and nearly murdered, his life nearly taken, until they came up with the new DNA evidence, and then him, getting married while in prison, and this woman, Lori, catching on to his case and drawing national attention to it, and Johnny Depp and the Dixie Chicks and all these Eddie Vedder, and people are coming, having rallies and trying to help Damien out and prove his innocence and get them free, all the boys. He got married while in prison, and he was on death row, and that woman did not know if he was going to get out or not. They fought and fought to get him out. So it does happen, and he had been convicted of killing 3 little boys. How horrific. I mean, the whole thing is horrific, but they have since then proven that Damien and the boys had nothing to do with it. And Damien is out now living a fine life. He's a great teacher. He's very spiritual. I'm a fan of a lot of his teachings and his work. But for a long time, nobody knew. Nobody knew what the hell was going on. But yeah, that he got married while in prison. That woman married him while on death row, fell in love with him. She felt like deep in her soul he was innocent, and it turned out to be true. He was innocent. The Watts case is completely different. Chris Watts is not innocent, and he has given a confession. So, and it's just a completely different situation. Just thinking about all that. But anyway, so there's your answer for what supporters of Chris. Yes. I feel like the women who support Chris, who have fallen in love with him and send him letters and fantasize about him and all of these crazy things, to me, that is just too much. That's over the top, completely out of line. Me personally, there's no fucking way I could ever get involved with a man who murdered his wife. What are you thinking? Murdered his wife and daughters and threw them away. What are you thinking? Yeah. But there are women out there that are doing this. That, just the same way what happened with Damien, except Damien really was innocent and really needed somebody on his side to help dig into this case from the outside and get to the damn truth. Who really did take the lives of those precious 8-year-old boys? But, the situation with Chris is something totally different. Okay? All the evidence is there. He did it. He admitted to it. And all fingers point to him anyway. So, that's that as far as supporters. All right, let's move on to the next question that people often ask. I don't have a whole lot of time. This video is probably going to be a bit shorter than normal. But I'm going to keep getting this content out for you guys, and we're going to keep talking about different things. And I really, really do appreciate your support, your comments, your feedback. It means a lot to me. I'm still, growing and building my channel. And it's important to spread this knowledge and information because I have seen what these types of things that I discuss can do to people's lives. I've experienced it firsthand. And I know what it's like for the whole rest of the world not to know, not to see it, not to even believe it, to be involved in situations where there is different types of abuse going on that's very subtle, very under the radar, that nobody can really pick up on, and not being believed. And having the friends and family and the world and the public think that that person is just a great person, that they're just caring and awesome and sweet. Me knowing what they really are. And they got everybody fooled, okay? That type of thing goes on a lot. So the more we stay educated, the more we stay aware, the more we pass knowledge along and just really digest this stuff, the more we're going to be able to protect ourselves and our families and our lives from getting involved with something like that. And hopefully, my God, in the future, things like what happened in the Watts case stop happening. I know that we all feel like we wish to God we could have done something. Like we wish to God we could have been Shanann's friend, or we could have gotten them out of there and gotten the girls to safety. And oh my God, they wish they hadn't gone back. And oh God, and I can't say that, any of us could be put in a position where we thought we could trust that person, where we thought, or it just didn't occur to us, or we just didn't pick up on certain things in time, or we just kept blowing off actions that might have meant something, but we weren't educated enough to see it, or we hadn't experienced that type of thing before, and we didn't know it was a red flag. That could happen to any of us, you guys. It's definitely happened to me. Even though I grew up in trauma, I grew up around criminal stuff and manipulation and abuse and predatory behaviors and watching all kinds of bullshit happening to myself, my siblings, and around me, and lies and dysfunction, and continued through my teens and 20s getting around different types of people. I've seen it, okay? But even I have been taken off guard before. Things I didn't know, things I didn't think about, that I wasn't trained on, that I hadn't experienced. So knowledge is power, okay? And that's not to perpetuate fear. No, we do not want to sit around terrified all the time, too phobic to have friends, too phobic to love. I keep working on that within myself. I'm not going to let anybody take that from me. My ability to love, my ability to be powerfully and positively vulnerable and feel things and experience things. Nobody's taking that from me. But by God, we can sharpen this and be very aware and very careful with our energy, our time, and who we just go opening that door and that heart to and letting it walk on in. Like with what happened in the Watts case, okay? In the beginning. All right, let's get back to it. Chris and Shan'ann met. And again, if you want to know more about this case, Chris Watts, 2018, murdered his pregnant wife and children after 8 years of marriage. She was 15 weeks pregnant. He had met a girl and had been dating her a 5-week fling, had become obsessed with her, as covert narcs often do, and prepared to discard the old partner. Generally, they don't go as far as murdering, taking the life. Generally, they don't go that far, but sometimes they do. Sometimes their entitlement and obsession with power and their narcissism is way off the charts to the pathological degree, and they do. Most of the time, they just discard people in a cruel, nasty, hurtful, betraying way by one day just walking away, getting someone else and become obsessed with them, treating them far more important than the partner or the family, and just being cruel, nasty, spiteful, ugly, competitive, smearing your name and character. Nothing you ever did was good. It's horrific. It is horrific to discover that you're in a relationship with a covert narcissist because they hide it so long. They are the ones that are so uncomfortable with themselves, with their narcissism. They don't want anybody to know it. And even when they let their guard down around you, the partner, you're going to be one of the main ones who sees it because you're the target. But even you, they're only going to give it to you in small, twisted doses and then try to take it back real fast and straighten everything out because they never want to look like the bad boy, never want to look like the bad girl. They are the toxic, codependent, more nice guys and nice girls of the narc world. Just keep that in mind, okay? Super, super nice, almost too good to be true people. They have that vibe. Anything to please you, agree to everything, people pleasing, all that shit is very, very toxic. That all leads back to a deeper wound or issue. And they are usually the exact opposite. They turn out to be exact opposite of what they are acting like and what they're claiming to be. All right, so the next question. If Shan'ann was going through so much, then why didn't she say anything? This is a question, which is going to lead me also to the conversation about how the narcissist makes you their mother. Especially the covert narcissist makes you into their mother. And I talked about this in the first video on this, and I also posted a link to Professor Sam Vaknin's video about this. Professor Sam Vaknin is a professor of psychology who also has narcissistic personality disorder, and he tells it from living it, from being that way. He tells it from the perspective of a narcissist, a pathological narcissist, okay? How they will make you into their mother, and that is the role that they want to put you in, and how you're punished if you don't take that role and go along with it. There is so much people don't know from behind the scenes with a covert narcissist, and I'm going to be breaking it down little bits at a time, and that is what I fully get off of the Watts case and from Chris Watts and his energy, his actions, his choices. It all makes perfect sense. It all adds up to that. Okay. So a lot of people have asked, though, when we talk about what it's like to live with a covert narcissist, how this shit didn't just happen overnight. It didn't just come out from out of the blue. It is the way they present it to you suddenly one day. but this has been in their mind a lifetime. This was there when they married you. This was there when they met you. Okay, so it comes up out of the blue, the final discard, okay, and how when they reveal all of their true colors, that kind of comes up out of the blue at the end and when they're getting ready to discard you. But never before. Before that, they always want to make sure you're not going to abandon them, that they haven't said or done too much. They're always looking for backup plans and fantasizing and keeping a bunch of supply online and otherwise. And they're, still clingy and codependent and agreeable to everything you say. And, they generally don't want to efficiently work out issues with you. They just want to agree and hurry up and, get things. It's really kind of weird. But the thing is, I don't want to contradict myself here. I want to make perfectly clear what I'm trying to say. And again, I will always tell you guys, these videos are for educational and awareness purposes only. I always encourage you, please do research. Research, read, look things up, double check, consult with professionals, do what you have to do. Don't just listen to one thing on the internet, okay? Because that could easily mislead you or get it taken out of context, and I don't want to do that. I want to make perfectly clear what I'm saying here, even if it sounds contradicted. Covert narcissism is complex. Living with one, it is contradicted. Their whole life is contradicted. It is a mess. They are the walking, talking epitome of a contradiction. They are nothing that they say they are, that they say they believe in, that they say their values are, that they say they can do, that they say they are skilled at. They are often so fake and putting up this false persona, and turns out they don't have any of those skills. They're very troubled and very weak in those areas and very self-conscious about it. Remember that word, self-conscious and insecure, because we're going to come back to that, okay? That is what drives everything in them. The level of self-consciousness they're on. It's far worse than everybody else. The feeling of inferiority, low self-esteem, insecurity, so self-conscious about everything like a small child. Because somewhere back in their life, there's been a wound of abandonment or abuse or neglect or shame that has never healed. And that part of their brain didn't get to develop in the emotional intelligence department. And they are very much like a small child. But that only is shown with the partner behind closed doors once they feel like they can trust that person and that person's not going to leave them. Fuck no, they're not going to show that little boy self-conscious vulnerability to anybody else. And I'm not talking about something sweet and endearing that all couples do. We all do a little baby talk, and we all have our little couple games. No, that's perfectly healthy. That's perfectly fine. No. I'm talking about something that is far beyond that. They literally regress into a child. And I thought it was just my partner because he had lost a child and because he'd had a sudden trauma in his life right before we got together and because he was alcoholic and he had a bunch of unresolved childhood wounds. I thought it was just him. I thought, even though I had seen personalities like him before, I was still kind of putting it all together and trying to understand these people. Like, what the hell is this? But come to find out, after running upon the Watts case and studying that, all the facts and figures and Chris Watts and his demeanor and his actions and choices, and a roommate that I had before, and really putting it all together. My parents weren't covert. They were just classic narcissists. They didn't hide the shit a lot of the time. It was a whole different kind of demeanor. But anyway, so just trying to give you a little insight to kind of how it works. And they say if Shan'ann was going through so much, why wouldn't she say anything before? When we talk about this starting long before the murders happened, how this thing with covert narcissism is really going on the whole time. When they first meet you, they are not really connecting to you. I have seen people ask this question over and over again. Did he not really love them? He must have not really loved them to be able to do that in the end. Or how did she just suddenly drive him to snap like that because she spent all his money and she was so sarcastic and emasculating, and she did this, and this, and I'm really sick of hearing it because clearly it's ignorant. Clearly you don't understand covert narcissism. No, again, I don't want to contradict myself. It does just happen suddenly when they decide to make their move and discard you and become obsessed with the new supply. Generally, if they think they have secured new supply, and it has to be real secure, they move real fast. You notice how what's her face was looking for a wedding dress and they were already discussing different things, but yet Nicole Kessinger claimed she was trying to take it easy and I didn't want him moving in with me and I was just trying to help him find a place of his own and blah, blah, blah. But yet she was online looking at wedding dresses, okay? So they both had this narcissistic shit, this insecure, move too fast in relationships. I believe Nicole Kessinger was highly motivated by Chris Watts being married and wanting to take him away from his wife. She was getting a high and a narcissistic supply off of that. I know what it's like to be an insecure young woman. I've been there. I've played all those games, unfortunately. I know that inside out. So anyway, this did not come up overnight though, okay? What is in his brain and what his programs are. It comes up overnight, the sudden discard and the cruelty. I can tell you my exact story and how overnight is when they start putting the worst beast on it. That is when they come all the way out. But we, the partners, have been seeing deranged, strange, hurtful, betraying, weird characteristics on them the whole time we've been married. Get it? The whole time we've lived together. The whole time we've been in the relationship, we have been seeing and living in a twilight zone of madness with them. And it brings me to my question. People keep asking, well, if that is true, then she would have said something. Why didn't she say anything before? Why wasn't it common knowledge that she was struggling with her husband if she was? That he was so mentally twisted or giving her so many emotional issues or that she was seeing strange things behind the scene. So let's get into that, okay? But I wanted to make it real clear. That's what happens in covert narcissism. It is there in their brain from the time they meet you, okay? It's how they come in and don't connect all the way to you. It's like they are a robot connecting on autopilot like an overzealous puppy, agreeing to just anything and just so happy to have a woman. And depending on who they are, how many girls or guys they've been with. Chris was young, he was inexperienced, and he's just moving on autopilot, just glad to have a girl, glad to have a woman, but yet all that inferiority and all that shit beating down in his brain. Not these covert narcs don't feel good enough. They'll never feel good enough. And it doesn't matter what you do, how much love, how much encouragement, how much you stand by their side, how much you build them up is not going to matter. They get in your life and they develop a secret resentment for you, a jealous, envious, contemptuous attitude towards you all the time in the back of their mind. And you see it coming out in little passive aggressive ways all the time. They try to undermine you or twist you here or twist you there. That naturally is going to start to drive you crazy. Naturally, you are going to start to have an attitude here and there, and you don't even know what this is. It's devastating, okay? And it comes out slowly over time. And those are the things Shan'ann would have been experiencing behind closed doors. Naturally, you're going to see an attitude on a woman like that. And if you understand trauma, then you also understand that there are people that are in the worst of abusive situations that don't go out and tell. My mother was one of those people for a long time. Typically, when people are being abused or traumatized, they are scared to death to tell. Who are they going to tell? They're afraid. Who's going to believe me? And then if he finds out I told, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to be retaliated against, or I'm going to be beaten, or I'm going to be manipulated again, or cheated on worse, or whatever the punishment is. So get that down. If she was going through this, that, and the other, we would have known. We would have known long time ago if Chris was actually behind the scenes an abuser. No, we wouldn't have. No, we wouldn't have, because a lot of women stick by the side of a man like that, and they pray for change, and they keep working, and they keep loving, and they try to keep their family together, especially if there's children, and they save face, and they get on the internet, and they smile, and they take family trips, and they go as far as they can to try to keep it all together. And I believe that with all my heart. People have wronged that woman, as Chris did, and smeared her character, and what they have picked up on in her energy and her life, they've picked up on the wrong shit. They have taken it and smeared it and misconstrued it. I have walked in those exact shoes with a man like that, where I was trying everything. They take her motivation as being snotty and caring about nothing but her job, and just caring about selling her products, and every fucking thing that was well intentioned and full of heart and well meant by that woman to save her family, to love her family, to provide for her family. Every little thing, they have taken it and they have twisted it and smeared it and fucked it off to their own fucking narratives, and it's ridiculous, okay? So when a woman is in a position with a covert narcissist, you will notice her start to overcompensate. You will notice, as we notice Shan'ann getting on camera and saying things like, he's the best thing that ever happened to me. And when we moved out here, I am just so thankful that that is a striving, almost grasping type energy. If you are at all versed in psychology, if you've been through anything in your life that has been either toxic or abusive, or you've been around different types of situations, you've had to experience something like that and actually know what you felt like, what you sounded like, what you looked like. I could read it all over her. And let me tell you something. It is 100% authentic. She loved that man. She meant every word that she said, because I did the exact same thing when I was with my partner like that. I did anything I could to try and reach him, because see, here's the thing. The covert narcissist is very childlike. I've told you that. And they put you in a position to become their mother. And if you don't accept the role, you get punished in a lot of different ways, which we'll have to talk about in part 3. But this happens slowly over time, okay? And, oof, Lord, let me slow down just a minute. Get this vape, y'all. So, in living with them, over time, they let out more and more of this childlike nature. A fragile, broken ego that doesn't believe in themselves, and that, oh my God, and you end up having to carry their ego. It is an everyday job, and they keep you under constant threat at home. It might be picking a fight when you're getting ready to go to work. It might be ruining your birthday. It might be purposely getting sick or forgetting something that was so important they were supposed to do for you, or whatever. They have all these little twisted, subtle, passive aggressive, cowardly ways of abusing you and driving you insane. And nobody will see it. Nobody will believe it. It's almost like Chinese water torture or something. It is just slowly over time. And you know it. You know it, and you've forgiven them so many times. You've looked over it so many times. You've prayed about it. You don't know what it is. You've tried harder to be a better wife, to talk more, to do more. If I work harder, if I make more money, if I cook better, if I dress better, I can be the best. Maybe he'll notice me. Maybe this thing will go away. Maybe he'll get the confidence he needs, and he'll be able to appreciate me and the woman who loves him and his children. I don't, all this shit is going on. That is what we were seeing in Shan'ann. Okay. They have these different ways of punishing you, maybe focusing more on dating sites or other girls, and for a long time, the woman will be so damn confused and so afraid of his passive aggressive punishments that no, she won't tell anybody. All she'll do is work herself to death, turn herself inside out to try to be better for him, and often take to going public and trying her best to boost his ego. I did the same thing. I thought, well, at home, we can't talk to them. They are like talking to a child and like talking to a brick wall. All you get is gaslighted, undermined, twisted, flipped over, goofy cartoon shit. I'm not kidding you. It's kind of why they're so quiet and remote in public, because they know if they speak too much, you're going to hear it. You're going to catch the errors. You're going to see the fakeness. They are often socially awkward, okay? It all goes together. But this is not something to pity or feel sorry for, because they are quite abusive and sadistic. They actually get off on the torment and the distress they're putting you through. They think it's funny. And they are so self-conscious, remember that word, and insecure and inferior feeling, that if they get with a woman, and they'll be the one harassing her, chasing her, wanting her, telling her, they are on this level. They love everything about her. They love strong women. They like women who say this and do that and put people in their place, and they want her to be in control of things. They set it all up. They set it all up. I'm sick of the misconceptions. I'm sick of the bashing of this woman. I'm sick of the confusion. I want these people understood and exposed. They set it all up. So self-conscious, right? That it makes you feel like you have to work double time to fill up that hole in them. That ego, that broken ego that was either wounded in childhood, their mother either twisted their head up, or their father, or their mother-father wound, or parents, or whoever it was. And you realize you'll never be able to fill up that hole. You'll never be able to fix that. And it's quite a nightmare. So that's why I would do the same thing. A lot of times I would think, well, I can't get through to him at home. Oh my God, I can't reach this man. I love him. I want him to understand how much I love him. And they play dumb a lot of the time. Oh, they can be very intellectual, very educated. I'm not saying that. But there's something very disconnected and robotic and blocked out about a part of their brain. And it will make you feel like you have to work 24 hours a day to try and reach them, to try and make them understand, to try and help their ego. There's so much to know about this and so much they put you through, okay? So there definitely will be a part 3. And we're going to be talking about this more and more. I've got more and more coming for you. But that's kind of what's up. And that's why we really mean it too. We're not faking it when we go on social media and say, I just love him so much. I'm so grateful for this man in my life. I thanked God for bringing me such a deep love and someone I could connect to such as that. But I was so fucking angry and upset and betrayed and hurt for being abused by him. Emotionally, mental cruelty, confusion, chaos, psychological torment. And our situation got way above and beyond because he was an alcoholic. So you get the mixed feelings going on in the mind of the victim of this. But nonetheless, I was being honest about my love for him. I meant every word of it. So it wasn't just to boost his ego. This shit was real. But see, the covert narc can never believe you. They've got this constant cassette beating down in their brain every day. I'm a loser. I'm no good. I'm not good enough to say that. And I'm not good enough to do this. And it's just, beating down constant toxic shame and all these weird issues that they have never gotten the treatment and therapy for and gotten resolved, and they're gonna blame you. The covert narc is the type that secretly smiles in your face, becomes your friend, your lover, your friend, your homeboy, your homegirl, whatever, and fucking hates you. Is looking at your car like that should be their car. is looking at your promotion at work like that should have been my promotion. Looking at everything you do, everything you get, every joy you have, like it should have been theirs. Yet they are never confident enough in the first place or willing enough to put in the same work, the same effort that you will to be popular, to whatever it is they envy you for. They're not willing to work on themselves enough to go that route, to feel better about themselves, to have more empathy, to be more liked or respected, to be better at skilled at whatever talents and hobbies they want. No, they just want to look at you and steal yours and drag you down to a certain level that they go through in their brain all the time. They want you feeling that, okay? There's so much more to it. But that kind of answers that question. They are like little children and they need their ego fed 24 hours a day. Whether it's getting praise, whether it's you're a good boy, whether it's jumping on them, whether it's ridiculing them, any fucking reaction, constant, you having to stop and say something, do something, get into it, praise them, not praise them, get on them, you forgot something, they provoke you into that 24 hours a day or make you feel that way. That there's just something off, something disconnected, something not right, and you will strive to reach them, which is what Shan'ann was often doing. I could feel the energy grasping in her. He's just the best thing ever, and I'm just so grateful for my family, and she meant it. She meant it. You can feel it and read it in that energy, and what she couldn't say is that I'm going through this behind the scenes and I don't understand it. I don't understand. I'm not reaching my man behind closed doors. I'm striving to, and I'm terrified that I'm going to lose it. And I'm having to work double time to reach his ego, to reach this man. Meanwhile, Chris Watts was doing all he could later on to smear her character, to make it sound like she was the one who was distant and remote and controlling and all about herself. And what you were seeing in her life was a more fucking healthy form of narcissism and motivation and working on herself and working hard and having ambition and having preferences and boundaries and good assertive energy. What people failed to see was the toxic ass, covert, cowardly narcissism on Chris Watts. The hidden, fragile narcissism. Yeah, because you won't see it. It's very hard to detect. All right, so guys, this one's gotten too long. But what we have touched on is a couple of questions. What Chris Watts supporters? Who on earth would do that? Well, we covered the people that would, unfortunately. And if Shan'ann was going through so much at home with Chris, or if he was disconnected the whole time, then why did she never say anything before? Why did the public never know anything about it before? Which Shan'ann wasn't, they weren't famous or anything then. In this case, wasn't even known. She was getting kind of popular on social media, but it's likely that we wouldn't have known anyway. But I do get that question. A lot of people have asked in other cases and things in their lives, you know, if somebody's going through something all this time, why did they never tell anybody? Why did they never reach out for help? Why has this not been known of before? Which in my case, thank God, I had witnesses. People heard me crying out from very early on. What the fuck is up? What is wrong with this situation? I'm trying to get through to him in private. That's not working. I'm trying to work with family. I'm trying to counsel with him. I'm doing everything I can. It's just getting worse and worse. I'm trying to boost him up on, maybe if I take to social media, maybe he'll read it. Since I can't get through to him at home, maybe he'll read my loving thoughts, how much he means to me and how much this relationship means, and maybe that'll help. I took it that far. That's what people are doing when they do that. Okay, I didn't get to finish telling you that. That's why I did it, and I meant every word of it, but that still didn't reach him. I ended up going so far, I started doing videos, you know, but videos were in my plans anyway, but you get what I'm saying. And there was no reaching him. So it comes out in all of these desperate attempts to try and reach that person. And you're scared to tell. You end up being very supportive of them for a lot of times many years behind closed doors. You're still trying to spend time figuring out what's wrong with them. You're still kind of thinking it's something that's going to pass, something that might get better year after year, while they're putting these weird, bizarre behaviors on you, and you get these bad feelings, and then they'll take it back, and oh, I'm just a good boy, I apologize, and you'll forgive, and meanwhile you're starting to do a little research, and you're really trying to understand what's wrong with this person, and sometimes it's too late. Sometimes by the time you find out, they have gotten so deep in your life and so many years out of you and so much energy and so much of your money or your time or your investment, and sometimes it's too late. Tragic, horrible things end up happening. um, so there's a lot more to tell about the covert narcissist, but that kind of answers those questions. You know, there's a lot of people in trauma and abuse that won't tell, don't know who to tell, don't even know what the hell this is. This isn't like your typical trauma and abuse. This isn't like somebody laying hands on you or like outright blatant abuse. This is something that for a while with them, you don't even recognize it as abuse. You don't even, until it dawns on you how strange this motherfucker is. How, what the fuck? Are you really like that? Oh my God. It kind of takes situation after situation after situation of it to happen for it to really even dawn on you. It's one of the worst things a person can ever experience is psychological abuse, torment, craziness, how it builds and builds and you can't really catch on. And oh my God, that's why it's important to get this training out, this knowledge, this awareness, all of us to talk about it, okay? Because we just didn't have a lot of information on it back a few years ago. We just really didn't. We'll finish up in part 3. We'll resume the question and elaborate a little bit more about why people don't tell. Because I've heard so many men say this about women before. Why didn't she say something? If he was that bad, why didn't she tell? If he treated her that way and he was abusing her, and I've heard women and men ask this question, why didn't she leave? Why didn't they just leave? Why didn't they tell? That's a whole other story about the trauma brain and yes, the trauma bonding. And we know all about that now. We know a lot more about it now. But this was even more, this was different than even that, because you can't see this abuse. It doesn't even look like abuse. It's not like normal. You know, this is some whole other shit where it takes you much longer. And you really think, oh my God, what would I say? What would I even tell somebody? How would I describe this? What's happening to me? And without them blowing me off or, he's a good guy. And, you know, they've never seen what I'm going through. I would literally have to record this shit and they would have to watch. They'd have to be a fly on the wall for maybe a good few weeks or a month and watch all these little things brewing and building and tormenting and twisting and taking back. And it's just so much madness. And it does escalate and get worse and worse. And it can turn into violence many times, and often it does. And just like in the Watts case, it turned into extreme violence and then tragedy. Absolute familicide. My God. So, but often people don't know. They don't catch on to things until it's almost too late. And, you know, until the covert narcissist is fully ready to discard you, they don't lay it on that thick. They don't lay it on as thick, but boy, when they are ready for the discard, they pull out every fucking nasty, brutal, psycho card that they have. My partner did the same damn thing. Things I would have never thought he would do that had been in him the whole time. And I could kind of tell from time to time, love him, rest his soul. He passed away last year. I always loved him. But as intelligent as he was and as fun as he could be sometimes, there were some things that he would say from time to time that did sound a bit deranged and scary. And I would kind of just think to myself, damn, you know, There's no telling. As much talking and counseling as I do with this guy, and I love him, there's no telling what he's keeping from me. What else is deeper, darker in the recesses of his mind and soul that he's not letting me know all the way? And I knew almost everything. We did some deep, deep, deep psychological and emotional and spiritual work together. So that's kind of what you're dealing with a covert narc. And when they decide to compete with you, they're sick of you. You've been their mommy long enough, even though they forced you into that position. Now they hate you for it. All these bullshit things, they come with all the brutal, all-out war on you. Competition, hatred, envy, smearing your character, your name. We know about the smear campaign, leaving you for somebody else, throwing it in your face, just treating you something awful. And in the Watts case, even worse. And so, no, you won't see it all the way before that. So it does kind of just happen suddenly, the discard and the evil, evil parts of it. But what people don't know is that it's been there the whole time. It has been wired in their brain like that the whole time. And most of the time, the victim has been seeing strange things and putting up with strange things, blowing it off the entire marriage and having to put up a brave front and a brave face and wanting to save their family, not knowing who to tell or what to do. Yes, that's right. So as far as these people going, she drove and he just suddenly one day snapped. I get so sick of hearing he snapped and couldn't take anymore. I'll tell you, he snapped and put his plan into effect. This was premeditated. He snapped because he is a man with low, if any, emotional intelligence and coping skills, no assertiveness, no conflict resolution, no empathy, no remorse. He's very high on the pathological narcissism scale. And he got himself in some shit. And he became obsessed with his new candy, his new ego, his new toy. And that's all it takes. And then their family becomes nothing to them, of no importance. Most of them don't take it as far as him, but that's where he snapped, because he wanted to be able to run off into the sunset with his new toy, scot-free, with no responsibility of the children, not having to face his wife, letting him know how goddamn wrong he was for doing her that way, not wanting to have to face divorce, not wanting to have to face the public shame of leaving a pregnant wife and children for a fling. Exactly. Covert narcissists can't stand to be shamed. Oh, it's the worst thing in the world to them to ever have to face any shame. They want to figure out a way to still be perceived as the good guy. The loving, caring husband and father who lost his wife and children. They just disappeared and he's in such grief. That's what kind of fucking snakes and liars they are. And manipulators. And you gotta learn to see them coming and smell them. And by God, the way Chris Watts stood out on that damn porch with that goofy ass body demeanor and body language and all those lies. Yeah, that's what he wanted to get away with. Exactly. That's who they are. So there's a lot more to this. What was in his brain had been going on for his lifetime. Shan'ann didn't do it to him. The girls didn't do it to him. You can't make somebody a murderer, okay? I don't care how bad they snap and how angry they are. Look up Live Abuse Free, study on some of her stuff. You just can't make somebody a murderer. So y'all get a grip. You folks that keep saying this shit, he just snapped. He couldn't take any more of her ridicule and her money spending and her beautiful empathy and light and love and cooking and decorating and motivation and pushing him and supporting him with encouragement and loving him and going on beautiful trips and having beautiful daughters. And he just couldn't take any more. Do you hear yourself? No, he didn't just snap in that regard. Thank you. It was premeditated. And after his attempt to poison his wife and kill his unborn baby by making her miscarry failed, he couldn't do this. All of this work to please his new obsession. That's how they are. My partner did the same thing 1 year before he died. This is exactly what he put me through, except not as horrific as what Chris Watts did. I'm still alive. I still have my voice. I was able to make it out of that. Okay. But very similar things happened. All right. And, I feel like I need to share this information. I want people to have a good insight into people like that. Okay. All right. So we'll answer some more questions and we'll pick up where we left off again in part 3, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. I hope you got some value out of this, and I'll see you in part 3. Okay.